Welcome to the Business of Drinks, where we go behind the bottle, interviewing beverage innovators and icons about how they built their businesses.
We take a data-driven approach, analyzing the brands, products, and categories that get customers and consumers excited.
And we cover several drinks categories, from wine, beer, and spirits to non-alcoholic drinks, as well as THC, adaptogen, and functional beverages.
So whether you're working in drinks or just interested in the stories behind your favorite brands, join us each week as we explore how companies are unlocking growth at every stage in the game.
Thanks for joining us, and let's dive in.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Welcome back to Business of Drinks. I'm Erica Ducey.
And I'm Scott Rosenbaum. Today we're diving into one of the fastest growing brands in the functional and the THC drink space. I am talking BRĒZ. And at the center of it all is Aaron Nosbisch, the founder and CEO, who has taken a radically different approach to building this brand.
Yeah, if you haven't heard of BRĒZ yet, just know this. $28 million in sales last year. And this is a brand that is less than 2 years old. So since their launch on 4/20/2023, the brand has scaled from 0 to 8 million cans. And at their current sales rate, they're tracking to hit 50 million or more in revenue in 2025.
Wow, those numbers are truly staggering for any brand, right? But what makes BRĒZ truly unique is its approach to transparency, right? We know all these numbers, and Aaron shares everything: monthly revenue, ad spend, profit margins, customer acquisition cost. He breaks down every detail for other drinks entrepreneurs to see. Go on his LinkedIn. We will link to it. But this January alone, you can see from his post, they did $4.5 million in revenue. They acquired 20,500 new customers and surpassed 10,000 active subscribers.
That kind of openness is practically unheard of in the beverage space. Most brands keep their strategies and their results locked down, but Aaron believes that sharing BRĒZ's playbook is going to help the entire functional drinks category grow together. And let's be clear, BRĒZ is about a lot more than just THC. The brand is creating a broader functional play. They're incorporating lion's mane, L-theanine, and other adaptogens to create craft drinks that deliver a social, uplifting buzz without alcohol.
Yeah, the category is exploding. BRĒZ started with 2 SKUs, both cans, a single and a double, the double having twice the dose of THC. And that's where they started, but they quickly expanded into new lines, including Flow, which is a THC-free adaptogenic, what they call a social tonic. So this is an alcohol-free, THC-free RTD. And they even now have a THC-containing bottled spirit. So the brand is now in over 2,000 retail locations, including Total Wine stores in key states, where their direct-to-consumer success really drives in-store velocity.
And the speed of their direct-to-consumer growth is truly remarkable. BRĒZ has leveraged digital marketing like no other beverage company. They use Google, Meta, Amazon, and TikTok Shop to drive sales. Their TikTok campaigns have gone viral, and they're constantly testing new ad platforms like AppLovin and Snapchat. And there's a reason for that. So Aaron's background is in social media advertising for THC brands. In fact, his agency, Lucid, Lucyd, they manage the social accounts of dozens of the top selling cannabis companies. So he, of all people, knew how to drive DTC growth. And then that's when he identified white space for a modern functional drinks brand.
Yeah, and he knows he can't do it alone. Hence, right, his transparent approach. He really understands that the way to build a brand is on the back of a rising category, right? Better to have the wind at your back rather than face these headwinds. So, his philosophy is that the whole category needs to reach this escape velocity together rather than breeze alone. And this idea that the rising tide lifts all boats is one that is part and parcel with his approach.
Yep. And we are going to discuss this and Aaron's strategies and tactics in depth. So if you are working in the beverage space, this is a masterclass on how to scale fast, how to use data effectively, and how to think differently in building a drinks brand. So let's get into it. Here's our conversation with Aaron Nosbisch, founder and CEO of BRÄZ. And now, a word from our sponsor. Is your drinks brand looking to start or expand import and distribution?
Whether you're seeking to enter new markets or you're unhappy with a current distributor and desiring a better fit, you should know about Swig Partners.
Founded by industry experts Eric Siegelbaum and Amy Troutmiller, Swig takes the guesswork and the legwork out of distribution strategy. Swig helps brands and distributors find the right fit for long-term relationships and sales success.
US-based importers and distributors should reach out too. With Swig, they can explore new products for free. And brands, you can get $100 off by mentioning Business of Drinks. Find out more at swigpartners.com/business of drinks. That's swigpartners.com/business of drinks.
Aaron, thanks so much for coming on the Business of Drinks.
Thank you for having me. I'm so stoked. I've been following along for quite a while, and so it's really exciting to actually be here.
Yay. Well, I have so many questions for you because I think one of the most notable things that you've been doing is building in public. So I feel like I have gotten to follow along from the beginning. So we're going to get into that. But first of all, I think let's start out talking a little bit about your background and how you came to work in the drink space.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually not from the beverage space at all, which was, was extremely challenging, but kind of opportune because I didn't really know the rules of beverage. So I didn't really, I didn't really necessarily know what was the right thing or the wrong thing to do. But my actual background, I've been building e-commerce companies and online companies and brands and projects for a very long time, actually, since I was 13 years old. I had a clothing company and I was in MySpace and Big Cartel, which was the e-commerce platform of the day. And I've just been kind of snowballed that project after project from clothing startups to, I went to had a band that was really popular online and in public. And then I had a portable aromatherapy diffuser. I had a CBD brand, to just a lot of like projects that eventually snowballed into this one. So if anything, I have more experience actually in the cannabis and the hemp world. My other company is called Lucid, which is the largest cannabis social advertising firm in the world. So we do a lot of social media ads for cannabis and hemp brands. And so that was the thing I was working on right before this, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I read that, most of the CBD and cannabis brands are actually advertising on social via your agency. I think, was it 90% of all companies in the space?
Yeah, there's more that are doing it now, so it's probably closer to 80%. And specifically of kind of like Meta. But yeah, we've been running it for a long time. It's really challenging, hemp products and cannabis products on social media is like, it's a very kind of gray area, and it's very challenging to know the policies and have the connections in order to facilitate it. So it took a long time of trial and error and a lot of just sleepless nights, and then eventually we figured it out, and then really just. And then, that gave me kind of this. So the Lucid started, well, just to back that up, in 2018, the Farm Bill passed, which allowed for hemp-derived THC products to even exist. And at that time, it was really CBD. There was no real THC hemp-derived products. And then I started Lucid in 2019 and figured out how to, I'm sorry, I started Maku, which was my CBD brand in 2018, and tried to advertise it, got shut down every possible which way, kept working on it, figured some stuff out. And then realized that this is like a huge problem for the whole category and no one knows how to do it. And I was probably the closest to figuring it out. So I just kept working on it, made some great partnerships that really facilitated that success, especially with Nick and Avin. And then that snowballed into it becoming the largest agency in the space. And so then that kind of gave me this like bird's eye view on what was happening in the category, from the CBD rise in the fall to the Delta 8 stint to people realizing that you could extract THC from hemp, and that as long as it was below a certain threshold, it was federally legal. And so I had this like kind of like perspective that I think rarely you have. I think kind of lawyers have that perspective, or maybe agency owners. So I was able to kind of have my pulse on the market while it's developing.
All right. And so that takes us to BRĒZ. Now, what inspired you to create the product, and how did you come up with the idea for what it would become?
Yeah, I think it was like two core things. One is I used to drink a lot of alcohol, and I loved it. Like I had a really great time going out with my friends and family, and having drinks, and like, and it was some of the best times of my life. Like honestly, some of the best connections, best memories. But like when I zoomed out, I always kind of regretted it. Not maybe every part of it, but like the macro outcome of it. It's whether it was, yeah, whatever it is. And alcohol has its place for sure. But I always felt like the juice wasn't really worth the squeeze. But so then when I stopped drinking, I just felt like there was a part of me that was missing. I wasn't going to the same places. I wasn't hanging out with the same people. And I also didn't have that tool and that friend that I once had in alcohol that almost was like a sense of relief for me. And I think that that's what like alcohol is for actually a lot of people, not just those that maybe have more abusive relationships with it, but just in general, it's a very useful thing. But why does such a useful thing have to come at a cost so great? Is kind of was also the question. And being entrepreneurial, I'm like, and wanting to have that solution, I'm like, well, what could we do? What would work? And I had used cannabis, and really love cannabis and think it's one of the most magical plants in the world. But the trouble with cannabis is you either smoking it, which whether you think cannabis is great or not, smoking is probably not great for anyone, no matter what it is. And then there's time and place. Don't get me wrong, but like as a more consistent thing, maybe not so much. And then edibles, they're fun and they're easy, but they're kind of unpredictable. I ask people often like if they've had an edible experience and whether that was pleasant, or if they've had a bad edible experience. And you often hear people have bad edible experiences, and they last a long time. It's like 30 minutes to hit or 60 minutes. Maybe you ate another one, and then you're on a 4 to 6 hour trip. And there's some biology to, or some chemistry to it too. Is in your liver, it turns into another compound called 11-hydroxy if you eat it that way. And so there's those things. And at that same time, I was running Lucid, and this THC movement was happening. And CAN, which is another social tonic THC beverage brand, reached out to me and was curious. They had just launched a hemp-derived THC beverage and was like, "Hey, you think you could advertise this?" I'm like, "Surely, let's give it a shot." And I had tried their product, and I was just mind blown. I was like, "Wow, this is awesome! It's fast acting. It was, it didn't last that long, and it gave me the closest feeling to having a drink with friends without the downsides." But I felt it was just a little too relaxing. I missed a little bit more like giddiness and like excitement that I was getting from alcohol. And I thought to myself, like, wow, like this is going to be fundamentally the future of drinking. Like this category and its fullest expression, which I think is going to be far more functional than linearly with one compound, which is kind of the basis of BRĒZ's thesis. So I'm like, I could do this. I could do this better. I could do this different. I could do this in a way that would be really powerful. And I'm like, I know that this is what the world needs. And I know that because this is what I need. And, I have this kind of like underlying belief of like, we're all very different, but we're also the same, and it's like, if I had that experience, probably other people are having a similar experience. And so, yeah, so got into
Yeah.
formulating it.
And tell me about the formulation process. So, like, how did you decide what the ingredient profile and the flavor profile should be for BRĒZ?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so first, I had tried these products. I had realized this is what I was going to do, and like it just made so much sense. And this is what I wanted to do. So I started just calling people, and I called my friends at Jibby Coffee. I called my friends at Aplos. I had a lot of, I had supported a lot of beverage brands scaling through Lucid, and I had just some friends in the industry. So I was getting 2-hour downloads of 2 years of information just to like get up to speed on even how to do this. And I totally underestimated how challenging beverage is. Like it is no joke from every step of the way. And so I was, I had to learn a lot very quickly. And then I was going to these cannabis and psychedelic conferences looking for, herbalists and alchemists, people that could help me formulate something that was special. So I had this vision of like, I wanted it to be a hemp-derived THC social tonic, but I wanted it to be different. I wanted there to be more to it, more functional ingredients. And so I had just the craziest, like, random circumstances where this guy came up to me because he had saw me early and heard about my agency. And his name's Travis Duncan, who's a partner in BRĒZ now. And he came to me and he said, "Hey, Aaron, this is some really interesting lion's mane extract that no one in the world has, and it's very, very high quality. It's very particular. It's nano emulsified and it's highly concentrated, and it's very powerful." He goes, "And I heard about you want to make this drink. I can help you make drinks. I make drinks." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." So we went back and forth for months, just like figuring out what it would look like and how it would work. And initial idea was like, I want something that I didn't want it to be too heavy. I wanted it to be light and floaty. But the trouble with like sativa cannabis is sometimes it's a little too heady rather than heavy. It's heady, and I didn't want that either. I didn't want anxiety. I didn't want paranoia. I want people in their heads. I want people to be social and interactive. And so we went and I wanted it to taste light and refreshing and uplifting, kind of like summer or spring, and just bright. So initially I was like, okay, and I wanted it to be not too offensive to too many people, because we'll talk about it maybe a little later, but we only have one flavor of our product. So I wanted it to be like mainstream acceptable, and something that like we all have like a resonance to. And I thought about my grandmother's lemonade often, and I was like, I remember having that lemonade by the pool, and it was just always like, it wasn't always the same, but it was just always refreshing. So maybe it should be something like that. And so we went through a few different iterations, and we landed on lemon elderflower. Also, what inspired that was a gin and tonic with Saint Germain. So Saint Germain is like the elderflower liqueur. I always loved that drink. I always found it light, refreshing, kind of bright and sweet. And so I wanted, and so we used an agave base, which gave it some of that sweetness in a natural way. And so so that's where we landed on it. And it actually happened pretty quick as far as formulation. Like, on all these new products, it's taking us 6 months to formulate new products, where that one probably took us 3 months, 6 to 12 months to formulate new products, where that one probably took us 3 months. And part of that is I just wanted to get into the game because I knew this was happening. I knew that this trend was happening and that the time was now, and I had to move very quickly if we were going to capitalize on it.
Yeah. And so tell me, what does the SKU set look like right now? And like, how are those products priced?
Absolutely. So this is an old can. This is actually the original, but they have a small can, which is our single, which is 2.5 milligrams THC, 5 milligrams CBD. And then it has the lion's mane extract, so really concentrated nano-emulsified lion's mane. So we have that. And then we have a tall can, which is a double. So that's a 12 ounce. This is 7.5. That's a 12 ounce. The 12 ounce is twice as much active. So we call it a single and a double. And then we also have another blend called Flow. And Flow is we won a medal at WSWA, so it's kind of cool.
Congrats.
Flow, thank you. Flow is our adaptogenic social tonic that has no THC in it, but creates a similar happy, uplifting kind of feel. It uses lion's mane, cacao, black seed or black cumin seed, and L-theanine to kind of create that effect, and kind of further supports that thesis. So the small cans go for a 6-pack today at $40, which is probably one of the most expensive 6-packs in the game. Our tall cans go for $60, and then we offer, and then our Flow goes for I think $35 for the 6-pack. And then we offer those at a 20% discount if you subscribe from our website. And so that's those. And then we just launched our new Spirit product, which is essentially it's like 15 of our tall BRÄZs inside of the Spirit. So it's a concentrated form. In the category, we call this a low dose, large format, because it's concentrated, and then there's a large format that has a lot in there, but like the actual dosage is the same as our cans. So one shot would be of 5 milligrams, or a half shot, which is what they do in Europe, and others would be 2.5 milligrams. So that gives you kind of maximum versatility. This one we sell for $69, and then it's also you can save some money on it, 20% if you subscribe to it. So this is currently the most value for the dollar in our product lineup. And I think we might lower our prices a little bit. Initially, like, it's really expensive to start a beverage brand, like every which way. So there's a lot of like variables that came to play there. And also, like, coming from an e-commerce background, I was trying to build a product that was designed for e-commerce, and there's like a certain unit economics necessary to make e-com work. So we kind of were forced to price it the way we did. And now that we're kind of getting economies of scale, and there's a lot more entrance to the category and a little bit of price compression, we might change it up just a little bit. But I'm eager to make the best products in the category. I think that's what we're doing today, and I think that's what we'll continue to do. And I think people don't really want budget drugs. I think people want stuff that they're going to put in them that's going to make them feel good, that they know is quality, and that's what I'm committed to.
Yeah, and they're willing to pay for that.
For sure.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit. I have to say that I think, within the industry, it really feels like BRĒZ has gotten so many followers and advocates, just feeling like really supportive of the brand. And a lot of that, I think, has to do with this building in public philosophy. So for listeners who are unfamiliar with what Aaron posts on a monthly basis, let me just take you through one of the posts. So this is the January update, and Aaron breaks down line by line essentially all of the numbers. So in January, the month had $4.5 million in revenue. That was up 26% month over month. It saw 20,500 new customers. It surpassed 10,000 active subscribers. The ad spend was 2.1 million. The retail revenue was 600,000 and change. The split between DTC and retail was 87% DTC, 13% retail. And then it goes into a channel breakdown of ad spend on Meta, Google, Amazon, etc. This level of transparency is unparalleled, truly, from any other brand that I've seen. So take me through the decision-making process on building in public like that.
Yeah. It's what I always wished other entrepreneurs would do. I mean, it's that simple, like I hate the secrecy of business. I understand it from the competitive ideation of I need it, we don't want anyone to know our secrets and whatever. And there's value there for sure. We don't share everything, but I share most everything. And I'm pretty open with just about anything. But the idea is I've thought a few things. One, I thought this is what I wish other people would do, and it'd be really cool to build an amazing company that could potentially change the world. But it'd be even cooler if I did that in the public, and then it actually did. And so that was one key thesis. And I, my partners had very supportive of that idea as well, especially Nick. So that was one. Two was this is an entirely new category of drinks. This isn't launching a new soda brand. We're introducing cannabis social tonics and functional beverage social tonics that use adaptogens and herbs and functional mushrooms and and those are all new things that's never really been done before. And there's other people doing it, but in order for a category to really mature and succeed, it kind of has to get to escape velocity, and I don't think one brand can do that. And there was plenty of brands before BRĒZ that were playing with this and hinting at this and doing all kinds of cool stuff. Whether it was Kin Euphorics with their functional drinks or Gia with their Mediterranean cocktails that are awesome, have nervines in them, or Can with their THC cocktails. So there was this kind of. So my thought was if we could really share what we were doing, and I have Lucid that's helping all these other brands. I mean, Lucid helps 65 different brands at the moment. And so it's if I could share very publicly, maybe I could help the whole category grow as fast as possible. And if the category grew as fast as possible, then potentially we all could create escape velocity together and have the highest likelihood of categorical success for a challenging category. I mean, there's all kinds of things going on within this category that make it challenging. But I figured if we could, how laws actually get made at the end of the day is people make them. You and I make them, other people, but that's who does it. So if they're drinking BRĒZ, they'll make good laws about BRĒZ. It's kind of how I think about it, if I'm being frank. And they don't have to drink BRĒZ, drink anybody. It's just realize that these products are serving a very important role in society, and that that gap is not being filled right now. And we're filling it. And I think so. The kind of thought process was there is it won't be just helpful to us, it will be helpful to everyone, and that could lead to being a key part of category success. And I mean, BRĒZ spends a lot of money on advertising in order to acquire customers online, and Lucid spends millions of dollars across all these different clients scaling their brands. And so if I could help the whole thing, so that was the second point. The third point I think is like a fundamental disbelief in competition. I just don't think it's true. And
Mhm.
I know that that's so foreign in the beverage community because it's like so bare knuckle fighting. It feels like, for shelf, because so much shelf space and everyone's fighting for the same shelf. I get it. But I just think that that's an old mindset. And I don't think that that mindset has to exist in the future. It can if you want to, but I don't want to participate in that world. I think that there's enough for all of us. I think that this is a massive blue sky category, and that there's 50,000 botanicals out there that do cool therapeutic things that could be worked with to make amazing products. Like I'm interested in that, and I think that you are only competing when you're following someone else. If you stop following other people and you just innovate and make new things, there is no competition. There's only people following you or making their own cool stuff next to you, and
Yeah.
I believe in that pretty
I mean,
deeply.
it's really interesting to me because, initially I thought of Breeze as like, yes, it's a hemp-derived THC drink. But then the more I started researching and following what you were doing, I was like, oh yeah, this is actually like a broader functional play. So like tell me about that. It sounds like you now are working, you have THC CBD mushroom products. And then you also have like entire other set of products that have no THC or CBD in them at all, but have these other adaptogens. So, how do you what is your vision for what Breeze will encompass?
I think that I would really like Breeze to make products that can enhance any moment for anyone in creative and effective ways that add value, that make them more and better, and that don't take anything from them in the process. And I think that that's actually possible. And I think we're doing it. And I think. I think everyone's going to realize that's possible soon enough. I think I just might be one of the earlier ones to realize that, and so I'd like, so that's kind of, our mission at Breeze is to reduce human suffering and maximize human potential, which is grandiose, don't get me wrong. Like I know that, like, but I think it's possible, like, and it's in that order intentionally, like, and that's why we started with this product specifically, is like Breeze is a product to give you relief without the same consequences, or maybe any, that these other products have. And then when people have that relief in a way that doesn't take from them, it creates space for growth and opportunity for themselves. So that's the maximizing of human potential. So we're taking the thorn out of the foot of the lion so it can roar, is another way to say that. So that's the core like mission and vision. So that's the core mission. The vision is to do that across, and I think the medium of drinking is just ancient. Like, what's the first thing you do when you're born? It's just
Yeah,
like you drink. Like
exactly.
it's so inherent to our existence that it's the perfect container uh, for alchemy within these other compounds and making new things. And like, I think there's a lot of people who either do that really ineffectively, or
Mhm.
people who do that very carelessly, and I don't
Mhm.
want to be either of those. I want
Yeah,
to, like, we have our full focus is efficacious and safe. Like, you should never question whether you drank a Breeze or not. Like, I want you to know that you had it. It did something for you. But I also
totally.
want that to be very, very safe for you. One of our partners is a PhD in pharmacology from Vanderbilt University in pharmacology specifically. So he does a full white paper on each product that we make, and really kind of understand how these compounds interact as best as we can. And yeah, so that's today. So right now we have our single, our tall, our spirit. We have our flow. We have some cool, more portable versions. It's kind of like a prototype, but like a shot type product in the works. And then, I want to go for like a range of like states and affects that can like enhance. Not, I don't want people like relying on Breeze in like a abusive or dependent way, but I do want them to be able to kind of enhance their life, or choose how they feel, or feel the way they want,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Nice. So tell me about the early days. So you formulate this product and you're working with co-packers to make it. Like, what were some of the early stumbling blocks
Mm.
as you started out?
Totally. So Travis was our chief formulator and innovator. So he's kind of like the master blender and makes what we all know as BRĒZ today. And then I work very closely with him to kind of like sharpen that edge to where we want to get it. The biggest challenge in the formulation process is the bitterness. Like cannabinoids specifically are just bitter. Like and the smaller you make them. So like when you take ingredients like this, you emulsify them to make them. Um, to homogenize them within the liquid and to absorb quickly. But the smaller you make something, the more it absorbs into your tongue. And so you taste it. And if the product's bitter, then you taste it a lot. And I'm very focused first on effect and then taste. And both are extremely important, but like alcohol tastes bad and people drink the hell out of it. And so does coffee. I you learn to love whiskey or scotch or whatever. And I love coffee. Don't get me wrong. Like you acquire a taste for it, but why do you acquire a taste for it? Because you enjoy it. Like it does something for you, And so the
Totally.
philosophy there was like focus first on experience and then on effects and then taste for a collective experience. And so dealing with the bitterness was tough because we were focused on effect, and to do the effect properly, it took ingredients that were bitter. So the first few versions of BRĒZ, actually, this was like literally OG first one. This one is so bitter, it's crazy. Like you drink it and it's like flavor, and then it kind of really has a bite to it. And then we've kind of rounded that out now, so it still has a bit of a bite, which is kind of I like. I think what people are very strange. People kind of like when things are just a little bit of offensive, like just a little bit, like that what I mean, in any situation, it doesn't have to be just beverage, but like just like art, it's like art can be beautiful, but then it can just like kind of
Yeah,
get at
yeah,
you, and that's also what makes it novel and curious and fun. And as like humans, I think we're like procurers of the novelty of life, and so BRĒZ is super novel because of that weird, sweet, beautiful, refreshing taste with that little bit of a bite. And so that was very challenging to figure out at the beginning. And from there, co-packing, shipping, we did very small batch co-packing at the beginning. We had batches of 200, and me and Travis went to Benzinga, and we took those first 200, slapped labels on the cans, walked around the floor at Benzinga Cannabis Conference and just passed them all out to people and just got their feedback. We were the only cannabis product that was people could consume on site, which was cool. Then we did a batch of 2,000, and then we launched those online, sold out of those pretty quickly. And then we did a batch of 40,000, and we were very intentional to be at every step, but whether it was the labels not coming out right and people telling us, oh, people don't care about the label, I'm like, people care about the entire experience, and that's
yeah.
what we were trying to curate. So a lot of those kind of challenges, shipping, I didn't have a shipping facility, and things started to scale up, and so I was just shipping them all out of my house, and I would have my like neighbors and my friends come over and just help us ship. But I would have trucks drop off pallets of BRĒZ in front of my home and then carry them like case by case to the back cottage and just pack boxes. And like looking back, that was like so much fun, but it was also like so challenging and annoying at the
Yeah.
time. But yeah, things like that.
I mean, it's incredible because, okay, so sales reached $24 million last year, and
28.
you produced, oh wow, $28 million. And you produced, I had seen 8 million cans. Is that accurate? Okay.
Yeah,
And
give or take probably 500.
yeah, and like 2,000 retail locations. I mean, talk about rocket ship growth. When was the initial launch of
Mm.
the brand?
So funny enough, we launched on 420, April 20th, and 420 is kind of like the cannabis, holiday. So we launched on 420 of 23, and then and that's crazy, right? And then we launched our other one on 710, our tall can on 710, which if you flip 710 over, it says oil, which is the other cannabis holiday. So that's kind of another funny one. Try to like encode these little messages, and so we
I
scaled
love
from
that.
fun, right? We scaled from April to December. I think we did 1.25 million or something like that. And then in December, we actually did 420,000 in revenue. Again, kind of just like these little hints of like, I want people to know like we're really intentional about what we're doing. Like I'm not like carelessly getting into this. There's like this overnight success stuff that you feel about BRĒZ. It's not really true. It's one of those like, it's like uh overnight successes. I forget how Steve Jobs says it, but it's like it's always surprising how long overnight success takes.
Right. It's
It's
like
like
10
10
years of
years and
slogging.
yeah, exactly. So that was 1.25 or so, and then we had our first full year in 24, and we did 28 million in last year. So that's stupid. That was like 19, which outpaced that's 18.7x growth. So that outpaces just about everyone on like beverage growth.
Yeah.
So
I mean, from just a logistical perspective of manufacturing and fulfillment, how did you scale up so quickly?
just I built the thing to I like like I was saying about intentionality. Like everything about Breeze is as intentional as it possibly can be for scaling as fast as it is scaling. Is what I would say. It's so like when I built Breeze, like I built it very intentionally to be very aerodynamic, to fly high and fly fast. Like I wanted a business that was very like crisp and contained, that if you pressure tested it, it would work. And so like whether it was the unit economics, the simplicity of the web experience, the simplicity of the advertising, the simple systems, it's like we have our like just very I'm a big fan of the KISS methodology, keep it simple, stupid, just like as simple and effective as possible, so that way we could pressurize it at scale. Now that being said, everything breaks every time you double the company. So, it's like, or it does not even always double, like sometimes just 1.5 times. So everything would break every 2 to 3 months, and we'd have to rebuild it and rebuild it and rebuild it. And, I think just like a level of like nimbleness and like good bones that were built to be aerodynamic and to fly fast and high. I think that was the key that allowed us to scale so aggressively.
Yeah.
And so that was like as far as the company is concerned, but like it's a great team is what really facilitates the rest of it. It's like you have to have something that can move that quickly, but then you got to have people that can move that quickly and that can be innovative and adaptive, and they, like uh like are open and they're creative and they're experts, and they come from different backgrounds, but they're willing to work with each other, and they don't have to understand each other fully, but they have to trust each other to figure it out. And
Yeah.
so I have a lot of just like smart good people that I've been blessed to meet or to partner with, and they're that's the real BRĒZ is a really cool product and business, but it's backed by an amazing team that's really facilitating it.
And so what is the team composition? Like what are the different roles that currently exist?
So we're about 25 or 30 deep, maybe 30 deep now. And then we have I think we have another 10 roles open right now that we're filling. And then another 10 after that on the way, which I like to keep it as lean as possible, as long as possible. It's hard in Bev because of the retail side of it. Like you got to hire a lot of people just to move the product. So composition. So I have our chief operating officer, Dan Gleishin, who is amazing. He worked in beverage before, in hemp before, so he had very like specialized experience in this. And all these guys kind of came into my world and me into theirs in very unique ways. So him as a COO, we have Brian Dewey, who's our chief revenue officer. So he leads our sales department, our retail department. He came from Stone Brewery and Kiva, and which is a big cannabis brand, and from Nabis, which is the largest distributor of cannabis products. A lot of like mixed experience between the cannabis and the beverage world. Nick Shackelford is one of my partners. Nick is probably one of the most iconic people in the direct-to-consumer e-commerce world. Super big following online, and been in the space for a long time, and really great community builder as well. And so he runs our retention department. Alvin Klein, who's my partner in uh, uh, Lucid, and he's more of an advisor, and he actually runs Lucid full time as CEO. He's a partner over there. Preston, who's our chief scientific officer, so he's the scientist behind everything at BRÄZ, which is different than really kind of Travis, who is the alchemist, and he's kind of the real formulator. So Travis is the one who's really making the potions and then working hand in hand with Preston to make those scientifically precise. And then so that's kind of like the executive squad. I hope I'm not missing anyone. And then we have our creative department led by Andrew Deich. We have our ops department led by Kenya under Dan. We have our experience team, Liana. She does all of our events. We're really big into events and like activations. Paid acquisition department currently led by Brandon, and that's everything from global paid acquisition to Google, Meta. Corbin, who's been my right-hand man for a long time, Daniel, an amazing creative strategist, and then an awesome sales team, like just people, regionals all over the country. We're in probably 14 states with distributors right now, but we do direct to retailer with like every state, or not every state, but every state we can sell BRÄZ into, we do. So we ship directly to those places. So it's
I
kind of
mean, I
like
gotta
that.
say, it's incredible to hear like the infrastructure that is currently existing around this brand that was able to spin up within a year. I feel like that
Thank you.
shows what's possible, if you're like, go, go, go. So tell me a little bit about the funding this. Have you funded this growth? Have you sought external investment, or has it been self-funded? Like, how has that worked?
Yeah, so we bootstrapped it, and we haven't actually raised any money thus far, which is a blessing and a curse. It's like it goes both ways, I think. But at the beginning, so I had tried to start a bunch of brands in the past without funding and without any money. And that doesn't work very well. You kind of run out of money really quickly, and then you're stressed out, and that's challenging. And then Lucid, is a successful business, and it spits off some cash. So that allowed me to have some cash, and my partners to have their cash. And so we put like roughly, we've made 3 kind of core investments into BRÄZ, like 100K initially, an additional 100K a month in or 2 months in, and then an additional 50. So there was about 250,000 invested into BRÄZ, and then we got profitable in like less than 6 months, something like that. So we were able to turn that. And again, it's like, because we built it that way. Like I the whole intention the entire time I was designing the company was like, if I can hit this, this, and this, it will work. It'll be profitable, and it'll shoot up. And part of it's that it's expensive. And that works. So it's a few reasons. Like, one, you got to have some margin. To get to a profitable state. It's not a big profit, as you know, in beverage. There's not much profit in beverage. I mean, like, I think last year we were getting close to 10%, and then we kind of drained it towards the end of the year. And then, but yeah, so like it just was built to scale. And then the unit economics, like, beverage is expensive. I mean, if we were selling 6 packs for $12 or $15, it's like, how are you going to pay $15 and then another $10 to ship it, and then another, and then you got to pay for the advertising and acquisition costs, and then you got to have the team. And so there's just like mechanics to the brand that had to exist in order to scale the way we were trying to. And I also knew that like I didn't know enough about beverage or beverage distribution in order to be as successful as the really smart people in the category are. At the time, I've learned a lot since, and I have really smart people like Brian on the team now to help. But like, that was a key factor. So I knew if we wanted to actually emerge and cut through the noise, we had to play by our own rules, not by anyone else's rules. And thankfully I didn't know the rules. And so we just did it. And
I
thankfully it
mean,
worked. So
yeah, it's that totally is incredible. I think there's just so many insights that listeners are going to take away from this on building and scaling, and I think just understanding like unit economics and putting that into place from the get-go. I think I hear so many founders challenged with, how do we price it, and like, how can we possibly do DTC, and DTC would be so amazing for us, but it's just
totally.
challenging from a pricing perspective. So all right, so let's talk about your customers. What insights do you have about who they are?
Yeah. So, a lot of people focus on demographics when they're making products. And I think that's especially important when you're like in soda, for example. Like if you're in soda, you're like, okay, these people drink soda. Maybe that's everyone. I don't know. And then there's like demographics who drink different types of soda per se. I don't really think that's the same in alcohol. Or maybe in alcohol it's a little similar, but I don't think it's the same in our product. Like I was really looking for a psychographic, which is different than a demographic. A psychographic is like, I want the person who wants to find relief, that wants to do it in a generative way, that maybe is looking for an alternative to alcohol, and whether that's zebra striping for just sometimes, or whether they want to replace it, whatever, and like that's not, it doesn't really matter if you're a man or a woman or if you're old or young. It just matters if that's who you are, and so that was the idea. Was like, let's focus on the psychographic, not the demographic. And that played out. Like today 51% of our customers are males and the other 49 are female, so it's like pretty down the middle. The age range skews a little older, primarily due to the cost. I think if it was more affordable, I think we would be hitting the young, a bit of a younger age range as well. But it's it's somewhere like 25 to so BRĒZ is a 21 plus product, so it's about 25 to whatever, 80 or however old, but 35 plus is a lot of our or 30 to 45 is a lot of our audience. And then there's another large segment of our audience that's kind of in like that 45 to 60 range. But it's really, it's much more evenly distributed than most would think.
Yeah.
And I think that will change potentially over time, especially as new products enter the category. But um, yeah, I mean,
Yeah. I
I
mean,
know there's like this.
strongly millennial and Gen X as well.
Yeah, exactly. Millennial and Gen X, I think, is probably kind of our core, and right in the middle, but also older. Like boomers drink it a lot as well. Like it's like, and
Interesting.
actually, I forget the generation above that, but that generation as well. Like like funny about boomers is like they were kind of anti-cannabis. A lot of them, like you got a lot of war on drug like philosophy and stigma in that generation. So like and like, so what's the scariest part about cannabis? Maybe people don't want to get high, or they're fearful of getting high, but two, people don't want to smoke things. Like that's actually the Easter egg name behind BRĒZ is actually short for breathe easy, so you can consume
Oh,
your cannabis without without smoking it.
I
So
love all the Easter eggs. That's so
yeah,
fun.
just a little intentionality. I think my wife's Taylor Swift obsession is probably fueling it. Um, but but yeah, so that was yeah, so it's really spread out, and I hope it, like you got to be careful, because it's like if you target everyone, sometimes you target no one, and so
Totally.
but I think like we are targeting someone, but
Mhm.
it's more of like a psychological, or psychology,
Yeah.
or a emotional thing rather than a age thing.
Well, tell me about the like audience acquisition. Like what have been the best avenues for audience acquisition for BRĒZ?
It's changed a lot more so than I thought it would, and so like intense adaptability has been a big factor. At the beginning it was meta. That was kind of like our secret sauce, is we knew how to do meta just about better than anyone. So I knew what works. I know what doesn't work. So that was a key one at the beginning. So meta is Instagram and Facebook. Google there shortly after was a very strong channel for us. When we launched Flow, part of the reason I wanted to launch it too was that you could access other places like Amazon, TikTok Shop, that you can't really do with a THC hemp beverage today. Although that will change in the future. So I decided to to launch this one, and so we launched that on Amazon, and then we launched it on TikTok Shop. The TikTok Shop, we went viral a few times actually, so like that gave us a big boost, which kind of fell off. But that, like, those moments push you into place, and like the online ability of being able to sell direct to consumer means we can acquire a customer base that we can keep selling to. It's like the kind of like tricky part of, some people are like, oh, we spend so much money on customers, like if you stop doing that, aren't you gonna, like, yeah, sure, you might, if you don't invest in advertising, you might lose some market share, or lose some of your revenue. But we also have 100,000, 200,000, I don't know, it's like, I think it's like 400,000 customers at this point. It's like those people know who BRĒZ is, and like, and also all that advertising puts so much, like, it ends up, we end up owning the mind share of people for the category, which is super effective. So yeah, it's gone up and down. Today we use AppLovin a lot, which is like it's like a it's a advertising network that have you ever seen people playing like Bejeweled or like
Oh
Tetris
yeah.
on their phones? Yeah,
Uh-huh.
so it shows ads there. That's been working really well for us lately. Snapchat just opened up THC advertising, so Snapchat's been doing better lately. But it shifts, so you have to have like a smart team, and you got to be really adaptable to kind of like keep moving with it.
Hmm.
You know, and that's kind of like turned into a competitive advantage for BRĒZ. Is like people in beverage don't really have much experience with D2C. Just not very common. There's a few that have done it. There's some big brands out there. Celsius does 300 million through Amazon and D2C. So like there's some big brands out there, but it's far and few between. And I, to be honest, I don't actually think D2C is going to be our long term play. Like
Yeah.
retail will likely eclipse D2C in the next few years. If not sooner, maybe a couple years. We'll see. But that like just that really intimate knowledge of e-commerce and direct to consumer, I think has been the key factor to allowing us to scale and emerge so quickly.
I mean, it sounds like it. And tell me about the retail strategy. Like, what types of distributors are you working with? Like one distributor or many distributors? And like, how are you working through the rollout? Are you targeting, big box stores, or which types of outlets?
BRĒZ is well positioned because it can actually work with almost all types of distributors. Like
Mhm.
beer is the primary distributors who like really understand this category and have been supporting it for a while. So we work with a lot of beer distributors. Wine and spirit distributors, though they also apply really really well, especially when we do like larger format products. And then, but also like traditional like non-alc distribution through like KHE or Unify is also an option for BRĒZ. So we have our non-alc options, and that's not really an option for a beer company per se, and so it's like you kind of have a few different lanes that can work, and we're still kind of figuring it out. Today we use kind of a patchwork of different distributors. Like at this phase of the category's growth, a lot of people are in, but not everyone's in. Like the big dogs, like Southern or Breakthrough or Reyes, like these guys are all really close to getting in, but they're waiting for some of the regulation to settle out a little bit more. But we work with the AB network quite a bit in several different states. We work with the Miller Coors network in several different states, and then yeah, so it's a lot of patchwork to kind of like create a map that would actually work. We try to prioritize the states that we're most successful with in direct to consumer. So that way we can use that online pent up demand to drive velocity off the shelf. For example, when Total Wine carried us in all their Florida stores and all their Texas stores, because we had all this pent up demand in both those states, when they put us on the shelf, we just sent one email to all of our customers saying it's available, and in 24 hours they're sold out. And we did
Oh,
that
wow.
on a weekly rotation till today. And it's like, and so I'm trying to do that as
Yeah,
much as I can.
yeah.
So
I mean, that's incredible because now you have such a big network of email addresses. You essentially can just drive traffic to any of these retail placements, which, is
exactly.
a retailer's dream.
Well, and when you walk up to a shelf of a whole new category of 30 different brands, but you recognize a couple of them that you saw on the internet, it's
Yeah.
like maybe that will help us drive that velocity. And, you know, like that was kind of the idea with the branding and the design too. Is like I wanted BRĒZ to just like look like nothing you ever really have seen before. Like I wanted you to be like, I wanted it to feel like if you saw people drinking, it would kind of bother you until you figured out what they were drinking. Like, you know what I mean?
Nice.
Like
Yeah.
it's so curious. It's like, what is that? And that was kind of the goal. And that's kind of how we think about it all, whether it's the website, whether I want it to feel so curious. I want it to feel so novel and so unique. And I want the experience to reflect that. The way I think about branding is like branding is like it's like the exterior shell to the interior, right? It's like or another way you can say that is like branding is a capsule for meaning. So it's like if the meaning is inside the can, I want to feel that on the outside. I want you to like look at this and like get a vibe of what that might feel like. And
Yeah.
I think that's what we accomplished with it.
I mean, it really feels it's like the future of drinking. Like, you look at that
Totally.
brand, you know what I mean? And it has that futuristic sort of feel, and, like, so, there's, like, little graphics, like, moving around on some of the ads and so forth, and it feels very future forward. So, I think that really, comes through, and it doesn't feel like it's geared towards men or towards women. It feels very sort of inclusive to from an audience like and design perspective, and like, and the fonts also, there's like some little sort of fun custom tweaks in there that
Totally.
feel very unique and well thought out as well. So I think there's a lot. It's like simple, minimalist, but for me, it feels like it conveys this idea of the future of drinking, and that you are curious, like you said, curious to know what people are drinking.
I really appreciate that, and that was the goal. And another kind of like core design theme was like ancient future, which is kind of like an emerging trend in the design world, but it really applies to what we're doing. Like we're trying to take ancient compounds that have been used and studied for, uh, you know, millennia, whether that's cannabis or hemp or cacao. Cacao is where chocolate comes from, and cacao is rich in a compound they call theobromine, which is kind of the happy part of chocolate. If you've ever heard people say that dark chocolate makes you happy, there's an actual like compound in there that does that, and cacao is rich in it. So we put that in our drinks, and black seed creates like a vitality. L-theanine is the calming part of green tea. So if you've ever heard people say green tea is more of a calming energy, it's because there's L-theanine in it. So we put the L-theanine in it. So it's like these like little, lion's mane's the most studied cognitive enhancing mushroom in the functional mushroom world. That's not necessarily psychedelic, but you do feel it a bit. And that's so those ancient compounds brought to this kind of like modern futuristic design experience. And so trying to take what we like from both and put them together.
Yeah, I love that. All right, well, sort of starting to wrap up here. From a business perspective, what would you say keeps you up at night?
Oh my gosh, all of it. I was talking to my friend Justin from another brand nowadays, and he was telling me, he's like, it's crazy. Like everyone always shakes your hand and tells you like, oh, congratulations, like all the success. And he's like, if they only knew what that cost, like, and it's true. Like, and I don't mean to say that in like a ungrateful way. I'm extremely grateful. Like this is definitely the most fulfilled I felt doing anything in my life. Like and I'm like a very like angsty person who doesn't get that sensation of fulfillment easily. So I love it, but like it's super challenging. You know what I mean? Like I'm not just making a beverage brand. Like I'm trying to do everything I can to help build a category. And that's not like simple math. It's legislation and regulators and other brands and suppliers. And, one time we got investigated by the FDA. So I just had 2 federal agents knock on my door. So it's just like, thankfully we passed with flying colors, and we got their stamp of, I don't know if I would call it approval, but acceptance. And so
Yeah.
it was like, so it's like, it's just challenging. The regulations is the hardest part because it's like 50 different states and they all have kind of different opinions. And then there's a federal side to it as well. And then like, by being a leader in the category, there's kind of a responsibility to participate and like, and help form and try to set those. And then you have to essentially get into politics. And then you learn that politics are really, you kind of learn how things really work, which is not that pretty of a thing. It's exciting because you can contribute and help make it prettier, but you also realize it's some special interests and quid pro quo and all. So it's kind of yucky, and so it, it's very stressful. But I do a lot of ice baths and I do a lot of saunas.
Good.
So
Yes,
kinda,
self-care. That is
yeah,
required.
lots of sleep, drink a lot of breeze, and I try
Nice.
to, and try to like, as serious as I am and as serious as I take myself in this company, I try to have a healthy level of detachment from any of it, and just like go with the flow and trust the process. And, it's challenging to do that because everything feels so critical and
Totally. Yeah.
significant, but I think the best way to handle important things is to do so with like a light grasp.
Yeah. And tell me about the goals for 2025. How are you planning to build on the brand's momentum?
So it's been scaling really aggressively, which is exciting. We did, 4.6 last month. That's probably a little inflated due to dry January, where people really are trying to, consume these products. And the month before that, I think we did 3.6 or 3.8, something like that. So in February, I think we'll come in somewhere around 4, give or take a little bit up or down, but right around 4. So not necessarily growth, but to be expected coming from January. So at that pace, we're heading towards like 50 million for the year. And so that would be still significant growth from the previous year, 28 to 50. I think what's more likely is that we get to 75 plus. If we're lucky, 100 plus. If we're really lucky, 150.
Wow.
So I think that like 50 to 150 is kind of like the revenue range. There's like a lot of factors, it's like California is currently prohibiting retail sales of these products. Like, does that change in the next 2 months? Because if it does, that makes a huge difference. How about New York? And, it's like, so these like key states, all that kind of factors into how fast things, some people are talking about banning direct to consumer, which is like core to our business model, and alcohol sales, specifically spirits and sometimes beer. You can't do direct to consumer. You can do it in wine. You can do it in craft beer. And, so there's some people that want to get rid of it. The trouble with that is the entire hemp industry is built off the direct to consumer. So maybe not the beverage part, but the hemp industry is. So how are you going to, and
Yeah.
really like the 3-tier system is a system from 100 years ago that was built to be anti-monopolistic and has turned into a monopoly vehicle. So and I don't mean that I'm grateful for the 3-tier system and I don't hate it by any means, but it's important when we're all doing something new to realize we're doing something new and to take what we like and what we've learned that has worked and to acknowledge and accept what hasn't and build something that's effective for the future. And so I'm trying to contribute to that as best as I can while respecting other people's philosophies and beliefs.
Awesome. All right. And then last question is about a drinks entrepreneur who may have questions for you. I'm sure that you get asked a lot of questions from a lot of budding drink startups folks. So, let's say someone asks you for a recommendation on like a book, or it could be a movie, it could be a person to follow, like someone or something that would provide business insights. What would you recommend to them?
I think I would say, maybe I'll give a piece of advice and then I'll see if I can come up with someone to follow. I think the piece of advice I would say is do not get into beverage unless you have a very unique skill set or a very unique offer, and ideally you have both. If you have both, then you get a BRĒZ-like result. If you don't have both, and not just that, and you time it well. The thing I don't want young entrepreneurs to believe that I think can be seen as TV is that you can just hop in here and have levels of success like BRĒZ is happening. It does not happen like that in a beverage very often at all. It's usually a much more expensive, arduous, high investor. It's usually a much more challenging. So it doesn't mean don't do it. It just means make sure that you have a unique skill set, you have a unique offer that fits a unique moment. And if you have that combination, then do it. If you don't, wait for it, because the time value return is significantly higher if you have those things. I also think it's you don't need to do what BRĒZ did. You need to do whatever's right for you. There's other great brands, whether that's Cycling Frog or Can, that really played, or nowadays that really played towards their hand. It's what were their skill sets? And if you lean into what your skill set is, and maybe that's juicy, maybe it's not, it's you'll be really successful. What I didn't do getting into beverage is I didn't try to play the game that everyone else played. I didn't know how to play that well. I knew how to do what I knew how to do well. And then when I had more success, more revenue, more sustainability, then I could work with smart people who knew how to do those other aspects. So that'd be my key piece of advice, I think.
I mean, that's fantastic advice. You've got to have the skill set, something that is going to drive this business forward. You've got to have that unique idea. And then you also have to time it just right. Like that trifecta of factors there is really what is going to help, deliver this hockey stick like growth that BRĒZ has been able to see. So,
sure.
well, congratulations on all of it. And Aaron, thank you so much for sharing your time and your insights with our listeners today.
Absolutely. I'm honored to be here, and thank you for doing this, and thank you for hosting a podcast like this. I think really entrepreneurs should be following you and what you're up to get the latest and greatest advice on how to build, scale, and exit in the beverage community.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Last Call. It's Caroline again with Erica and Scott. And recently I attended a webinar put on by Areni Global called Rethinking Wine Education. If you're not familiar, Areni Global is a leading organization dedicated to addressing the critical challenges facing the fine wine ecosystem. So this whole seminar was about what they're calling the wine trade paradox. So through speaking with more than 130 top wine professionals and conducting roundtables and workshops, it became really clear to them that the trade is facing numerous skill shortages, particularly in finance and sales. And many employers are struggling to recruit top talent because the wages in our industry can't match what's available in other sectors. Despite more people than ever pursuing WSET education, there is a huge gap in skills beyond the product knowledge. So another issue that is cited in the summary of this is that the way that people typically come into the wine industry is one of three ways. They either fall into the trade, they're born into it, or they come to it after a full professional life, which means that the wine trade is not visible to a wider community. And this is speaking to, the recruiting capabilities of the industry. So I wanted to bring this to the conversation today because I think it's a really important one to have. And I think all of us in the room have, our own experiences with wine education. And so we have plenty to share.
Yeah, I'll hop in first. I think that we are facing a major skills gap. And the challenge really, like you said, it's finance and sales. And, I did the WSET certifications up through part of the diploma program. And there was only one unit that we talked about and covered really the business of wine. So much of wine education, not just for WSET, but for other organizations, is focused on the product knowledge and, the farming regimens and understanding and memorizing all of the AVAs. But is this information really the most germane to people who are going out and working in the industry? I would say no. Having an encyclopedic knowledge of grapes and vineyard training methods and all of these types of topics is not necessary. What really is necessary is, how do we price our products? How do we understand the margins of our business? How do we know how to run a profitable drinks program or wine company or DTC arm? And these are the types of things that there are almost no training programs out there. There's a couple of internships and mentorship programs out there that do address some of these skills, but it's very few and far between. So I read part of this Areni Global report and was in complete agreement that an overhaul is needed to make all of the professionals who are working in this industry truly understand the germane skills to the roles that they're going to have. And right now, that's not available through educational means.
And I'll take the middle road here. I think a lot of these educational organizations don't suppose themselves to be wine or beer or spirits business education. They just think of themselves as wine education or beer education or spirits education, right? They're saying, here's the map, right? Here are the grapes, here are the grains, here are the production techniques. What you do with that knowledge, you should either be expected to have some business knowledge or learn that on the job. And I'm with Erica that I do believe there's a gap because there isn't necessarily the mentorship or the pathways in these businesses to upskill the workers. I remember I'd taken 2 or 3 classes, WSET classes, which I loved, I adored. And I could tell you every grape in every region that we sold in the retail store I was at. But in terms of my business knowledge, all I knew was you took the wholesale price and you multiplied the bottle by 1.5, and that's what we put it for on the shelf. That was my business knowledge. It took decades of reading books, of asking questions. And I wonder if for every wine book I read 20 years ago, I read 1 or 2 business books, if I'd not be in a better position.
Yeah. And from a sales perspective, obviously wine sales have been a huge conversation. And from my experience, the people that I see getting into wine sales are people who have a deep product knowledge and have basically just soft skills, and they can kind of talk to anybody, and I think that's just missing a huge part of people who might be interested in having a job in sales if they were given the proper training. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. There's a tremendous difference between product knowledge and sales knowledge. And right, you need this kind of triumvirate, particularly if you're a sales rep, of you need the product knowledge, you need the soft skills, but you need that sales knowledge. There is an art and science of how you do sales if you're going to do it well. And any sales rep knows they have those one or two people at the company that like they envy because they're like, how do they do it? Those people have it figured out. They learned.
Yeah, definitely.
On the job. I'm about 3.5 years into selling wine, and I just had to fumble my way right through it at the beginning. And luckily I knew wine, so I didn't feel like a total fool. But looking back, there are situations that make me cringe a little bit, or, oh, wow, I wouldn't have approached it that way now that I do understand sales better. And all that's been on the job. And luckily I've had so many mentors that have decades and decades and decades of experience in the business of wine. But, nothing about my road to my current position prepared me for that, if that makes sense.
Definitely. And I would also add that I think it's not just the financial and the sales skills that are lacking, but also data and data analysis, because, I look around these bigger, more competitive companies, and who are they hiring? They're not hiring professionals from wine. They're hiring professionals from other CPG categories who have been trained up on data analytics and are able to help wine modernize and become more data-driven and strategic in its decision-making. So, so many times I'm like looking at who gets hired into these roles, and often it's just not people who had a traditional wine background. It's from people who are from outside the industry. So I think there's this knowledge gap, and however those of us who are working in this industry can get that knowledge, whether it's taking, community college courses or other types of professional training, or even just, online classes like Coursera, there are ways to upskill that do not require going and getting an MBA. So, that would be my message. It is not that hard to find some ways to get this education, but certainly it is time consuming no matter what you're doing. But I think it is at this point looking for educational venues from outside of the wine industry, because at this point they just don't exist. And I completely agree with Areni that there is an overhaul needed.
Absolutely. Who should offer this training? They posed at the end of their report. Maybe if there's an ambitious listener listening now, you can come up with a new business opportunity in the business of wine education. On that note, we have used all of our time for today. So thank you again for joining us on the Business of Drinks. Please follow us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Tap the notification button so you can be the first to know when a new episode drops. And please spread the word by clicking star ratings and sharing on your social channels. It really, really helps us find new listeners. And lastly, if there's anything you want us to cover, please send us a message on LinkedIn, Instagram, or in our email at podcast@businessofdrinks.com. We will talk to you soon.